It's possible that the James Webb Space Telescope may have just recently captured images of galaxies that contradict existing assumptions and are very ancient, massive, and well-formed. There are others who maintain that the Big Bang theory is fallacious. Did the James Webb Telescope just prove the Big Bang theory wrong? It is more likely that this finding has a commonplace explanation, such as dust or faulty calibration. This might be the case. Even if the observation is accurate, the discoveries would still need us to reconsider how matter evolves into galaxies in the early universe. Yet they would not undermine the Big Bang theory. Is the theory of the Big Bang in jeopardy? The answer, which should not come as a surprise, is no, or at the very least, it is exceedingly improbable. On the other hand, as of late, a significant quantity of questionable reporting and talk on social media has advanced the aforementioned sensationalist allegation, claiming that the James Webb Telescope just proved the Big Bang theory wrong. Given the significance of the issue at hand, it is critical to get an accurate understanding of what is and is not the case. Immediately after the data from the James Webb Space Telescope became available to the public, several assertions were made regarding galaxies that existed between 400 million and 325 million years after the beginning of the universe. A further two organizations claimed an even more ancient galaxy, which might have existed 225 million years after the Big Bang. A third group is claiming to have detected a galaxy that was created at the astonishingly early epoch of 180 million years after the Big Bang. This is when the difficulty begins to arise. According to the most recent idea, the galaxies that are the most old should be quite compact. In addition to that, their shapes have to be asymmetrical. These comparatively little galaxies would gradually combine with one another over the course of eons, eventually growing to a size comparable to that of our own Milky Way. On the other hand, these infrared visible galaxies appear to be far bigger and to have a form that is more regular than what was projected. Because of this reality, various people have offered their opinions, particularly those who have held a long-held animosity for the concept of the Big Bang. The alarming term panic is used as the first word in the title of a scientific study that discusses this problem, which is cited in one of the articles. Eric Lerner is an example of this type of person. He is the author of the book, The Big Bang Never Happened. These papers are also being used by other individuals who believe in creationism or intelligent design so that they may make the same argument. The finding of big and well-formed galaxies at such an early time requires a reaction from the scientific community. Although it would be premature to reject a hypothesis that is as strongly supported as the Big Bang, this does not mean that the scientific community should ignore the evidence. There is more than one way to respond to this question. But before we get into it, let's take a moment to appreciate a very significant point. There is no definitive information available at this time. arXiv, which is an online repository for scientific articles, has been accessed and the papers have been deposited there. Even though it is only open to uploads from reputable academics, meaning there are no quacks, these publications have not yet been subjected to the process of peer review. It is probable that, after additional investigation, they will be taken back on their statements. These discoveries, therefore, should be considered provisional at this point. The question, therefore, is, what kind of an explanation could there be that would not require anyone to alter physics textbooks? One of the more straightforward hypotheses is that there is dust in the space between the James Webb Space Telescope and the faraway galaxy. Dust is able to selectively absorb blue light while transmitting red light, which is something that is obvious to everyone who has ever witnessed a spectacular sunset. The light emitted by distant galaxies may have moved toward the red and infrared, not just as a result of the expansion of the universe, but also as a result of the dust that has accumulated in the intervening space. This might explain the reports of these galaxies, because the James Webb Space Telescope has only been operational for a very short period of time. Another very simple option is that its online optics and electronics have not yet been correctly calibrated. This is because the JWST has only been functioning for a very short period of time. It is possible that the JWST technical personnel may be required to make modifications to the signal processing and algorithms as a result of increased operating experience. If this occurs, it is possible that the initial claims will no longer be valid. It is feasible but not certain that the findings are accurate, and that it turns out that early galaxies are bigger and better constructed than the present theory predicts. However, this does not in any way disprove the Big Bang theory. Rather, it may force us to adjust our views of how galaxies formed from the assembly of stuff in the early universe. The Big Bang theory would have to be modified to accommodate this, but this in no way constitutes a complete rejection of the theory. At the moment, the Big Bang hypothesis serves as the most accurate representation of how our universe came into being that we have. Astrophysicists have demonstrated that the theory adequately describes the phenomena that have been seen in space over the course of several decades. These phenomena include persistent background radiation and elements abundances. It is a solid model that provides us with a rather accurate picture of how the universe came into being around 13.8 billion years ago. On the other hand, despite the recent deluge of preprint papers and popular science stories on the first photos captured by the James Webb Space Telescope, outdated and incorrect claims that the Big Bang never occurred at all have been making the rounds on social media and in the mainstream media during the past few weeks. According to the claims of one researcher, the photos produced by the JWST telescope are causing panic among cosmologists. Cosmologists are scientists who investigate the beginning of the cosmos. This is not even close to being accurate. The James Webb Space Telescope has not discovered any evidence that contradicts the Big Bang theory, but cosmologists are not very concerned about this development. Why, however, do we keep coming across articles on social media that go popular with quirky headlines that imply the Big Bang never took place at all? In Lerner's article, he makes use of some of the early investigations conducted by the JWST in an effort to refute the Big Bang idea. What is disturbing is how it incorrectly interprets early evidence from the JWST to infer that astronomers and cosmologists are concerned that the well-established theory could be wrong. The existence of a cosmic microwave background is one of the primary pieces of evidence that lends credence to the Big Bang theory. 1964 was the year when this was found. In a nutshell, the cosmic microwave background (CMB) is the radiation that lingered after the Big Bang, shortly after the beginning of the universe, and scientists have been able to see it using satellites that are able to detect that radiation. Therefore, if you want to demonstrate that the Big Bang hypothesis is wrong, you will need to explain the CMB in a different way. Lerner has a negative attitude about the CMB, and the previous research has shown that his suggestion for the observation is incorrect. If you are interested in more arguments against Lerner's theories and the reasons why the assertions don't add up, I suggest checking out the most current video that Brian Keating has uploaded to YouTube. Keating is a cosmologist at the University of California, San Diego, and he goes into a bit more depth on the limitations of Lerner's arguments in this article. In addition, it is essential to keep in mind that Webb was not designed to see and carry out novel investigations of the CMB itself. It is not possible for the telescope to see so far back in time. On the other hand, it will focus on an era that occurred a few 100 million years after the Big Bang. Whatever it is that it discovers, there will almost probably cause a shift in how we think about the origins of the universe, galaxies, and the development of the cosmos. However, it is dishonest to assert that the early photos and study results have disproved the Big Bang idea. For more updates on space and recent findings, be sure to subscribe and turn on post notification. The Big Bang theory is consistent with the findings that cosmologists and astrophysicists have gathered over the course of several decades. If we apply Lerner's alternative explanation, their arrangement is not nearly as orderly as one might expect. It is still possible that scientists may uncover evidence that contradicts the Big Bang theory despite this fact. They very well could. However, for the time being, it continues to be the hypothesis that provides the greatest explanation for what we observe. It is possible for well-reasoned scientists to dispute scientific ideas, and they should do so whenever they give extremely comprehensive and carefully considered arguments. Not now, though. That's not one of those moments. This indicates that contrary to what has been reported in the media, the Big Bang did in fact take place. Researchers revealed terrifying images. Watch next video to see these images.